This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. As long-time Raith Rovers supporters, we are very familiar with ropey performances. But if you need a service that's more Sam Stanton than Willie Accio, look no further than DIS. Operating across Scotland, they specialise in working at height, offering maintenance, inspection, repairs and more. So if you've got a problem at a height that even John Fredrickson can't reach, visit dynamicindustrialservices.co.uk to find out more.
Welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast, where tonight we're gearing up for Derby night. Last season, Rovers struck gold with 5 wins out of 6 in the Derby, but will Friday the 13th be a bad omen this weekend? I'm your host, Robbie Weir, and tonight I'm delighted to be joined by, firstly, he's not made his bed tonight, it's Callum Blair.
No, I've not made my bed.
Just lazy, man. Come on.
I don't know why. I just didn't get round to it. Yeah, lazy bastard. Just the Dunfermline ones.
We've got a few on trial, so keep an eye out for that. We've got you and Cameron's arch nemesis. It's Mr. Scott Fleming. How you doing, Scott? How did you find that? How was that experience going on for their 100th episode? It was for the Big Scottish Football podcast.
It was alright. I mean, at the start, it was just obviously you and Callum having to be told yet again that he was talking pish, basically.
Part of the course.
So, no, it was, I mean, Stephen Mill, the guy that kind of is the main presenter on it, he's obviously a Dunfermline fan, so he's the sort of guy that kind of, on that podcast, that talks more about the lower leagues, and he knows most about the lower league sort of thing. Obviously, Ewan Cameron's a big jambo, so he kind of only really knows about the top flight. He knows a wee bit about the lower leagues, but it's it was a good discussion and stuff like that, and I think it was a good 10 minutes or so. So no, it was alright. But the two of them, I don't know if any of you have watched it before, but I drop in every now and again to watch it, and they do talk some nonsense.
It's no my cup of tea. It's one of those ones where it's just to quote Blair, a trumpet is how it would describe him. And then, to bring it to Blair, the man who's caused the most outrage in Ayrshire since suggestions that Biffy Clyro are mince and Robert Burns is a mediocre poet. How you doing, Blair?
I'm good, mate. Biffy Clyro, not mince, for the record. I'm a Biffy fan. I'm good. Blowing bubbles, apparently, but
good. We're delighted to have you back.
Delighted to be back.
Because, as I say, just people taking things so seriously. It's like people I know.
I didn't know it was so controversial. To
Dunfermline as well. It wasn't actually really. I know.
I know that was the best bit of it. There's definitely some lessons in Ayrshire needed on sarcasm.
I did enjoy it. A lot of talk about bitterness, and I just came across like, what are you on about? Like, it's just very wee man syndrome. Very insecure there.
Bizarre.
Sticking with you, Blair, just to get your thoughts. Obviously, you didn't make the podcast that we held after the Ayr game, so just your thoughts on the debut for Neill Collins in the dugout, and what were your viewpoints, because you managed to get down to the game?
Yeah, I went down. It was the most cliched game of 2.5s ever, I think. And I made the stupid decision to post on social media at half time about how good the first 45 minutes of the Neill Collins regime had been. Certainly better than the second 45, let me tell you. No, I thought, to be fair, I genuinely thought we started really, really well, really positive. The
players were kind of quite buoyant. They were playing some really good football. The formation was working. Even Ross Matthews looked good at right centre back in the first half, to be fair. I think, listening back to Collins' post-match interview when he talked about the player having the attributes, I kind of get what he means. Like, playing right centre back, you've got a bit of support and a bit of cover, but they targeted him, and it kind of got a bit uncomfortable for him at points. But brilliant in the first half. They were so good, really fast-flowing football and all the rest of it. I think one of the things, I listened back to the post-match, I think Ayr needed probably a wee bit more credit. Like, I think that the easy narrative is you're 2-0 up and we've lost 3-2. So what have the Rovers done wrong? And they absolutely did. Don't get me wrong. The second and the third goal were dismal. But Ayr came out the traps in the second half. Like, they'd clearly had a rocket at half-time for Scott Brown. And had come out in the second half. And they were a different side in the second half. And I think our players naturally fell into that thing that you do when you're not necessarily in good form, where you're like, right, we're 2-0 up, can we just see this out? Like, let's not blow this, let's not do anything stupid. We lose a crappy penalty. I'm still not convinced it was a penalty, but I'm not really sure what Ross Matthews is supposed to do at that point. He's got his hands by his side. Graham had a point actually in the show as well. It maybe was more about the fact that it was one after the other. But then the second and the third goals, second goal in particular, and I know Scott will probably kill me for saying this, but I thought Lewis Stevenson was massively at fault for that second goal. He just switched off, completely fell asleep. And it's like a player of his ability and his experience. I thought it was really ironic that we had a makeshift right centre back, that we had a right winger effectively at right wing back, and we had two defenders on the left.
Yeah,
and both goals came from the left hand side. But I think it was a free hit for Collins. Like, it doesn't really matter. We move on from it.
Yeah, 100%. Particularly given it's a Derby game, we've done so well in them recently, in the Challenge Cup. Ultimately, well, they've increased the prize pool. I think it's still, to a degree, it's seen as obviously you're happy if you get to the latter stages, but I think early on, like, there's quite a few sides that have been knocked out from the Championship already. Scott, how about for you? What were the positives that you took out of last Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking about the first 30-35 minutes anyway, if we can play like that for the majority of every game, we'll actually probably be winning games more than we're losing them. But yeah, I think the second half, it was just so frustrating, as you say. Like the penalty, you can't really do anything about it. It's on what the referee thinks he's seen, and we think it's harsh. It certainly looks very harsh. We were saying actually in the group chat how the fact that it was in the exact same goal that Anton Dowds just 2 weeks before had taken a penalty into Kev. And Kev did this last year in the shootout at Partick. I wasn't really paying attention to the one against Hamilton because it didn't really mean much, but like, he seemed to always be diving the wrong way. And I was just like, I don't know if this is just like, for instance, the Partick one, maybe he's not seen enough. Like, Brian Graham takes all their penalties, for instance. So, like, he's not going to ken who, like, all their players are going to go what way and stuff like that. Because we've not got the data that, like, the Premier League and everything down south have got for penalties and stuff like that. But even the fact that he's just faced Dowds 2 weeks ago, same ground, same spot, same yardage away, and he still went the same corner and Kev's still dives the wrong way. Like, surely inside you go, he clearly likes that, like, spot. And if he goes the right way, he probably saves it, because Dowds, although he places it in the corner, it's just a little stroll into the corner. There's no power in it. He's just confident that Kev's going to dive the other way, which, it's at the end of the day. Didn't get me wrong, I thought Kev actually, considering obviously that and conceding 3 goals, I thought he played fine on Sunday. I thought he made some really good saves, especially the double save he made in the first half. When you look back at the highlights, I don't think he can even really see that first shot that's coming in. It's came through about 4 bodies at ankle height, and he's just guessed when it's coming through him. And the reactions to get down to it, and then obviously to get down for the double save to make sure that he's like killed the danger, so to call it that. But it's and then that 45 seconds of madness, I was just losing my shit at that. Like that, when I watched it back on the highlights, I'm sitting going, "Am I watching like Lowland League shit here?" Because that was just pathetic. Like. We've talked up how good the likes of Stevenson, Hanlon, even Liam Dick in recent weeks. And the fact that the Liam Dick fan club were even outing him on Sunday just tells you it was an absolute shocker of a pass. And the fact that
Hanlon was pheasant,
and it's just the fact that then they've went for it. Like, I didn't exactly count it, but I'm sure it was around 45 seconds for having our own kickoff to picking the ball out the net again. I was just like, you just cannot do that at this level at all, no matter who it's against.
What?
I was going to say, just quickly, before you come in, Robbie, see on that penalty thing, Scott, you're 100% right, by the way, because Robbie Thompson was, like, we were in the west stand, I think it is, the sort of the seated area behind the terracing, and Robbie Thompson was right in front of us because the dugout is kind of right there, and Robbie Thompson's on the edge of it with the book out, and he's clearly kind of talking to Kev and stuff before the penalty. And when he takes a penalty and Kev dies, Robbie was like, "What?" Like they clearly decided he was going to go the other way, and Kev's just changed his mind, or I don't know what it is. Sometimes you read something off the player or whatever. Like, it is what it is. The kind of pressure's on the goalkeeper, I suppose, but. Yeah, Robbie was not a happy camper at that.
It's one of those ones where, as a keeper, it's probably very easy to get into your own head. And I think that would have been the case against Partick last season in the playoffs, where he went like to, what was it, the left-hand side each time. And he's probably thinking, someone's going to take a chance and go to the left here. And then it's just, But we move on. Callum, just to one bit of sort of news that came out this afternoon was that Ross Matthews' testimonial game against Hearts next month. So yeah, just your thoughts on that. Just a slight bit of different news in the build up to the derby there. Quite happy to see that come through.
It's always good to see a player get a testimonial because obviously Matthews has spent a long time. I think him and Vaughan came through at the same time. I want to say maybe a year apart, but it's like they've been at the. It's like obviously Vaughan had his towards the end of last season, so Matthews getting his was a no-brainer really, and it's good to see him be rewarded for his service.
That's it, and I think it's really deserved. He's been a great servant for the club, and I think if you speak to anyone about Ross Matthews, they're usually speaking high praise about sort of the type of character he is and what he's done. Very good that it's against Hearts. I think he is himself a Hearts fan. Ironically, the club where he ballooned that penalty in the League Cup at Bayview all those years ago as well, which I don't think anyone really forgets that one, unfortunately. We on Monday there was or yesterday even there was the Club 1883 Q&A session that was held with Andrew Barrowman and Neill Collins. Just really a chance to get to know the manager, sort of some fan-led questions conducted by Davy Hancock of Raith TV, who basically led the proceedings, and its feedback seems to have been very transparent. Blair, you managed to catch the event. What were your sort of any interesting points that came out of it for you that you'd want to flag up?
Yeah, there was quite a lot actually. I really enjoyed it. I missed the last one. Which I believe was a bit of a shit show from everybody that I heard went and listened to it. This time it was really well. I mean, I've been on record a number of times singing Davy Hancock's praises. He's a mate of mine, but he's also very, very, very good at what he does, and he's just so natural with it. Nobody got name checked for any of the questions or anything, which I thought was really clever because you'll have 15 people putting the same question in. Do you know what I mean? So you ask the question and all 15 of them feel like they've had their question read. Like it's just basic wee things like that. But I really, really like listening to Andrew Barrowman, and I know that won't be universal. I think it's fair to say that's just the nature of football. But no, I really like what he's kind of got to say. There was a lot of chat about behind the scenes and a lot of chat about the upgrades to the stadium and stuff, and a lot of the work that's been done. There was one particular part where he was talking about the kind of changes to the infrastructure and stuff. That was a really interesting point when he talked about the club needing to be, I don't want to put words in his mouth or try and not paraphrase it, but it was along the lines of the club need to be a Premiership club off the pitch before they're a Premiership club on the pitch. So it's almost being prepared for getting promoted so that when they are promoted, and I love the fact that he said when, there was no if, it was when it happens, we'll be ready for it and it'll be sustainable and we'll be able to kind of put down a marker for it. So that was really promising. He talked about the job offers. I really like the transparency. Like, do you know, like going back, listening to John McGlynn interviews or whatever, you know fine well those questions were kind of, we're going to ask this, nah, you're not asking me that. And I want to, nah, you're not asking me that. And maybe that's still the case, I don't know. But he was basically, Davey asked about, 2 folk were offered the job before you, Neil. How do you feel about that kind of thing? And Barrowman came in and said, actually, I'd like to dispel that myth. There was only one person offered the job. Now, he kind of talked around it, but from what I'm taking from that, and they kind of did talk about it, they'd offered Neill Collins the job first, and Neil was asked why he didn't take it quite up front, like if he wanted to speak about it, and he said like he's got 4 kids, there was family issues and all that kind of stuff to consider, and so at the time it just didn't feel like it was right, but he'd very quickly kind of managed to put things in place, and by the time the second offer came round to him, he was delighted to kind of take it up. So that was quite positive, and lots of good chat for Neill Collins as well, who again, I have to say, he speaks really well. Not physically, it's been kind of mentioned before. He sounds like he needs a throat lozenge, but he speaks so well. Like I really enjoy listening to him. Really quite a kind of interesting character. I like his viewpoint. He talked a bit about tapping into untapped markets. So looking at the States and looking at particularly British-based players who are playing in the States, who he feels could potentially come back and do a job.
Johnny Russell.
So Johnny Russell, come on down. But yeah, really enjoyable 90 minutes. It really was.
Again, to sort of unsurprisingly sing the board's praises, I think that it's good that we've got the transparency. One thing that stood out for me was the willingness for them to, and it's been a bit of a subject that's been sort of spoken about. Depending on who you know and who you talk to, you'll get different viewpoints about it. Was about the 200 Club, because obviously that's changed now, where the 200 Club have moved. And I'll be brutally honest with everyone, I don't know the ins and outs of that situation. So I can only go on what I see off face value or what you hear, or maybe you hear it through the grapevine, etc., etc. I would be really keen to hear the 200 Club side perspective about this. But yeah. Effectively, they've moved out of the premises seemingly from underneath the south stand, and they're now up at the Bowling Green, and that there's been sort of changes there. But I think it was good to hear that there's at least open discussions about it, even if both parties maybe aren't on the same page about it, that they can have that sort of candidness to go out and talk about it. I mean, Scott, what were your thoughts when you sort of see stuff like that and you're sort of looking down that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, like stuff like this, we've had sort of debates within the group chat between different individuals about it, and it seems to be like more people are kind of on board with it than not. I'm very 50-50 to be honest with it all. Like, there's things that I'm seeing that I'm going, oh, this is a really good change, or they're doing this right, or they're thinking about something that maybe we've not thought about that actually probably will benefit us. And then there's stuff like we've heard about they've come up with plans of increasing bills for like the 200 Club, the Macmillan Lounge, other sort of stuff as well. And you're just going, well, obviously they've clearly went and done their research on why they're going to put the money up. But still, there'll be people that go, well, yeah, you maybe have done that, but at the same time, we've been here for so long. And at the same time, it really is like a difficult situation because you've got, like, Rory, for instance, is a big fan of the club, has been for all his life. And then you've got guys like Barrowman and Mackenzie that have came in that weren't Raith Rovers fans before they came in. But Rory's probably been the one that they've leaned on to try and get a fan's perspective of what do you think this might look like, and do you think that the majority will like this, or how do you think it's going to go down? They've maybe got his, and then they've went to each. Well, Blair would tell you better. Like they've went to each of these clubs to speak to them and give them what offer they would give them and what's included in that offer, but also they want to hear what the club think. Going, well, why do you guys think that we should only be paying this amount per year or whatever it is for your membership? But it is, yeah, as I say, like I'm very 50.
Yeah.
I'm not a member of either, so I also can't really speak for anybody on it. But I know members in both, so I'm hearing it for both sides of why people have decided to not agree to it and why people have. So as I say, I'm
I
very
would say the
split in
same.
the
I mean,
middle.
I've got no skin in the game myself. Like, I'm not a member of the 200 Club, Macmillan Lounge, etc., etc. I just rock up every Saturday. There's a game at Starks Park and turn up, and then you happen to end up on a podcast. I think that it really depends upon who you listen to and you hear from as to what happens. And a lot of the time, again, because of these things, it can end up in sort of Chinese whispers as to like what happens and what information's going on. So yeah, again, I think it would be interesting to hear from like the 200 Club. And I think as well, it's really important to call out the work that the 200 Club and places like the Macmillan Lounge do as well. Again, it's... Yeah, of course.
I was going to say, just really quickly, because Scott's mentioned it, I didn't really want to go massive detail in it, but for what it's worth, I think Scott's kind of hit the nail on the head, because I'd spoken about that. When they decided that they wanted to make a change to the sort of membership structure and stuff at the clubs around Starks Park, they put together a proposal, is the best way to put it, because that's exactly what it was. Sent it out to the members and basically said, this is what we think it's worth based on our research, and they showed their working. They told us exactly where they'd gone. They looked at Ayr United, they looked at Dunfermline, they looked at other clubs around us and what the offerings were and what the prices were. And they based a package on that. They then, Dean McKenzie, Colin Smart and Rory Kilgour came to the Macmillan Club AGM and sat in the room and chatted it through with us. And we pretty much said we didn't want that package. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what we're about. This is what we would like to do. And they effectively they listened. Like, they were really open to it. They were kind of honest about it. They said that ultimately it's a space within the ground that needs to be generating a revenue. And this is what we feel we could generate. But by doing that, we would effectively have a bit of a lifeless thing. It would just be corporate membership coming in or whatever. And that they very much wanted to keep the community that was built and was there. And I think we negotiated with them. We got to a level we were happy with and they were happy with. So it was very much not them coming in and telling us what was happening. But they did come in and say, like, it needs to change. And I have to be honest, you sit in the room with them and you listen to what they've got to say. You might not like it. You might not want to pay the money. You can't disagree with it. You just can't. They're right. Like, what they're saying is absolutely true in terms of the value of these things. But the value of something's only what you're willing to pay for it. And that's the difficulty. And I thought Andrew Barrowman acknowledged that last night in the thing as well. I actually really like the fact that they're not moving on the 200 Club. And he made that very clear in the Q&A last night, that it's very raw. They're going to do some upgrades and stuff while it's vacant, but they're not moving on it yet. I think they still hope that the 200 Club will come back.
As well, I think that's where an important point to acknowledge. Like, at the end of the day, like, I get that these, like, in terms of the likes of Andrew Barrowman, Dean McKenzie, etc., are coming in from the externals, but 200 Club, it's all going to be Raith Rovers fans, isn't it? So at the end of the day, they're still, you would hope that they want the best for the team and that there can be sort of, doesn't necessarily represent a door closed in these things. And again, I can't speak for the people that are involved. They might have far stronger feelings and know a lot more than I know. But again, ultimately, at the end of the day, everyone's a Raith Rovers fan. So, yeah, fingers crossed that there can be that discussion and move forward, and there can be a bit of clarity. But I think it is good to hear that they're sort of acknowledging it, that it is a bit raw, and that, yeah, as you say, Blair, that it's not necessarily going to be like, right, we're moving in, we're making a bar here. It's like, could be quite easy to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, again. So yeah, the other main thing that seemed to come out of the sort of discussion, Callum, was that there was indications that we are going to be potentially looking we're on multiple rounds of auditing of the accounts. There might be terrible news for everyone that's talking about the Fife Gretna, because seemingly the board are very optimistic that we're going to be running at a relative profit for next season. So what were your thoughts hearing that, and just in terms of the sort of positive outlook, potentially financially, that we might be seeing?
I couldn't believe it when that was put in the chat. It's like, how long it's like, when was the last time? This needs to be something that we need to look into for something, because it's like, when was the last time Raith Rovers made a profit? Genuinely. Because I swear, like, the most recent, all I can remember is just about every other year just being told, like, John Sim has come out in the Fife Free Press and just said, yeah, we've made a £500,000 loss or something daft like that. And it was just the same thing year after year after year. So for the board to come in and do what they have done behind the scenes with all the marketing and bringing in Donna Pies, that to make a profit is a really good sign. A really good sign that we are moving in the right direction. Because, of course, there's always talk about being a Premiership club, but we want to do that sustainably. You know, it's like we don't want to go down the route of Gretna, of whoever else has just blown money at things and then ended up in administration or whatever. So Dunfermline did that at the beginning of the 2000s. A lot of clubs did that in the SPL in the 2000s, early 2010s. So it's good to see that we are doing. It's like, I don't mind it taking a season or two longer than what it would do if we were just chucking money at it, if I knew in the long run I would still have a football club. And
yeah,
that's what,
and I think that again, it's not cast iron yet. There's still sort of developments that can happen. You know, these things aren't necessarily written in stone, but it's at least an update that's sounds like we're on the right track. And I've got absolute faith that the club will come out with complete transparency, because it's a reason to celebrate if it does happen. And I think that they will be the first to break it down and say, this is how it was achieved, this is how we've managed to get into that position that not many clubs can actually do at this level. But again, time will tell whether we can get to that position and how things progress. So yeah, believe it or not, there is a game to talk about Friday night. We visit the KDM Group Stadium in Dunfermline, Hallbeef. Yeah, so 10 years before we won at the KDM, and then we got 3 on the bounce last season under Ian Murray. Scott, just to come to you firstly, do you think that Neill Collins can carry on the foundations laid by Ian Murray? How optimistic are you going into the derby?
Well, I really hope it's 4 wins in a row. But yeah, it's a really tough one to call this time, purely down to the fact that just how kind of slow a start we've had this season. I mean, they've arguably been just as bad, if not worse, than us. So it's probably a Fife Derby where like neither team are going into it with any good form. I mean, Dunfermline won in the Challenge Cup, but I mean, it seemed to take them still quite a bit of time just to get going against East Fife. So yeah, I genuinely, like, even last night I was putting in my prediction thing for the game that we've got for the podcast, and like I was sitting going, I really don't know what to put here. Is it a Rovers win, a draw? Like, I one thing I will say, and it might come back to bite me, I do not see the Pars scoring more than one goal.
Why, Scott? Why did you say that?
I don't think they've got that in them right now.
Right, we're editing that out of the podcast.
No.
No. The Pars have not. They've proven it this season. They've not got that in
Scott,
it.
you're doubling
Just
down.
now.
Why are you doing it?
Don't double down, Scott. Don't double down.
So
don't back down. Double down.
I'm just confident the fact that if as long as we score a goal, I don't see us losing the game.
So we've got Blair to blame for Ayr after saying what an excellent opening 45 minutes, and now we have Scott to blame for his hubris over the derby. That's just what it is.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's the players in the
being
park that get the
scapegoats.
result. It's not what I say on a Wednesday night.
No, it's what you say. It's what you say, Scott.
I think Scott's got a point, though, because to be fair, out with that 45-second period in the second half at Ayr, defensively, we've actually been pretty good this year. Do you know what I mean? Like, we conceded a really, really crap goal against Livingston, which you just have to chalk up to a mistake. Penalty against Ayr and then one on the counter when you were pushing. With 10 men, we were pushing for the equaliser and they caught us on the break. Like, it's and beating away Airdrie. And it was a sclaffy little finish. I genuinely think we've looked all right defensively. We just haven't looked like scoring goals until Sunday. So I came away from Sunday thinking, like, green shoots here. Like,
Blair, just to come to you now, in the Q&A, Collins basically spoke about sort of playing a back three and how he's done it before in terms of his setup and sort of the squad. Do you think that he's going to go with that in the derby? Do you think that he'll potentially look to change it up? What are your thoughts on that one?
I think he might. It's hard because, like I said at the beginning, I get what he meant when he said that Ross Matthews has the attributes to play that position. Nobody thinks it's his best position, and listening to you guys in the post-match, it was like straight away, nope, never again, don't do it. And I totally get that. But when we're not up against George Oakley and Anton Dowds and that big, brutish, physical presence that they have, it potentially can work. It is one of those positions where a midfielder can slot in on either side of the back three, just preferably not the middle. So you've got Paul Hanlon there to kind of do that job. I think he might. I don't see there being another centre-half fit for Friday night. There doesn't seem to be any rumblings about that happening. Bruni's back running, but is not likely to start. I could see him starting with a very similar team to what he started with down at Ayr. The back three, for genuinely, and I mean this, for the first 45 minutes down at Ayr, we were great. Like, there's no two ways that we were really good. And it was nice to watch, and it was fluid, and the overlap and all the rest of it. The one player that we have in the whole squad that probably doesn't fit a 3-5-2 is Lewis Gibson. He's the only player he's the only out-and-out winger we have at the moment, I think. Everybody else that is a winger can also kind of do another role or can kind of slot in. Connolly, maybe to an extent, is in the same boat, but not quite so much as what Gibson is. But I tell you what, he looked good at right wing back. Contributed to both goals. So yeah, I can see him doing the same again. Two up top again. It'll be interesting to see whether Stanton's fit enough to start in that midfield. I think that would probably make a big difference. In place of probably Mullen. No fault of Mullins. I actually thought he was really good, but just having that extra, the legs that Sam gives you. Like if he's fit, I mean, I joked about it last year about 70% of the earth is covered in water and the rest of it is covered by Sam Stanton because he's just everywhere. Like, and if we can get that Sam Stanton back,
I mean, last season Sam Stanton derbies, it was absolutely synonymous how well he did and how many goals he was cropping up with. And then on top of that, Callum, Bruce Vaughan obviously came back as well on Sunday. Do you think they'd be in line for starts potentially coming into this game?
Yeah, I'd imagine so, because I mean, with a derby, you want your best players on the pitch, even if they can't do a full 90, even if they can only do an hour to 75 minutes, you start them, because you want to go at them. So having them start would be fantastic.
I've got to agree with that. And again, Sam Stanton last season, I think we've waxed lyrical about how well he did in the derbies and just how influential he was. So if we can get the same out of him again, then you're automatically looking at a go to the good, pretty much. Just absolutely mauled Dunfermline. Scott, just to come to you next. Dunfermline for the last year, they just seem to have been in a permanent injury crisis. We've obviously joined them more recently, but yeah, looks like the latest to that list are Kieran Ngwenya and Kyle Benedictus, two ex-players of ours, looks set to miss out. Just your thoughts on sort of the Dunfermline 11. I mean, it might be you and Otto playing at left back seems to be the suggestion. Do you think that would give you, especially given the game that Lewis Gibson had last weekend, what would be your thoughts going into that one?
Yeah, I mean, as you've just said, they seem to have just had a permanent injury crisis for age. It just feels like it's never going to end for them, which I really couldn't care less about. But it's, I don't know. I feel like, to be honest, I would have rather have somebody like Benedictus playing, because I said that at the time, I thought we actually got his not extending his contract bang on. I thought we timed it perfectly. I thought he just started to show signs of losing a bit of that. So he wasn't like slow or anything, but he just seemed to be getting a little bit slower sort of at the end of his time. He was picking up a slight bit more injuries and stuff like that and knocks. So I think we actually did well in actually saying, look, we're not going to bother renewing your deal. And I mean, he went to League One and Dunfermline were saying how good he was, and then came up to the Championship and started picking up injuries left, right, centre. And to be honest, I've not heard about him having a great game since he's been there in the Championship. So I think we did well with that. I mean, Ngwenya, I was shocked at the pause. I mean, I think for them, they just needed a left back in the door ASAP. When they got the cash for Josh Edwards, they were just like, we need to get somebody in, because we're now, because it was fairly late in the window, not like August time, but like they were into competitive games by the time that deal had went through, and so they were like, well, we need somebody. And at the end of the day, they're going to play you and Otto there, and I tell you what, if it's Gibson against you and Otto, what a battle that will be. Like, two of them will be going right at each other, hammer and tongs. But I think the good thing is that you're taking away the best part of you and Otto's game, which is being that sort of... He's actually quite a physical presence in the middle of the midfield, and he's just sort of box to box. He likes to just be involved constantly. If you've got him out on the left-hand side and not in the middle of the park, when we arguably are going to be missing our key midfielder in Scott Brown, I think that's actually quite a good thing for us to have him out there and not in the middle of the park. But yeah, I suppose we'll wait and see once the lineups come out. I would just finally go on to tap in about the back three thing. If it was me, I wouldn't be playing a back three again until we've got three fit centre halves. I think that I just feel like when you're up against... I get what Blair was saying about the physical aspects of Dowds and Oakley, and you're not going to be playing that every week, but I still think I would rather have guys playing in... how many times did we talk about last season? Guys not playing in their position.
Collins was
and already we've already got guys playing out of position, and I just feel like get guys in positions they're comfortable with and that they know, especially in a derby game, because if we come out of this game, just say that we did lose it, we go then end up bottom of the league, and we're already going, why have we played this back three again? Why are we playing players out of position? That is the exact questions that will come out if we did go on to lose on Friday.
Can I just add on to about the Dunfermline squad? I just put like a quick look in to see what they played against East Fife. You and Otto played left centre back in the back three.
Yeah,
he's done that before.
Also, when it comes to injuries, unfortunately, one player who isn't injured is Oluwayemi, who is the goalkeeper that they brought in on loan. He's started the last two games, so it doesn't seem likely we'll be playing against.
Again, I think that's to be expected, because Mehmet was just absolutely atrocious towards the end of his sort of matches that he was playing. One thing that did, again, to touch back to the Q&A, one thing that was sort of said by just in terms of Collins was that like he's going to be looking to obviously fit the players in and try and play them up, think in the best position. Seemed to be one of the points that he was quite sort of keen on, which is positive news to hear. Blair, you mentioned before Scott Brown's obviously back in training now. do you think, again, that's a reason for optimism? And again, as well, if you could just give us your thoughts, because Kieran Freeman came back and looked really positive, I felt, last Sunday. If you just want to touch on him as well, do you think that he might be in line for a start?
But I think he probably would be if he was fully fit. I think he's maybe not quite there yet. And when Gibson's playing well at right wing back, if he is going with a back three, I don't see him changing it from the start. I think if he goes a back four, then we might see Freeman playing. There's a bit of me kind of... I get exactly what Scott's saying. You've got to play the best players in the best positions that you can play them in. And Colin spoke about that in the Q&A. He's no daft, he knows that. But at the same time, you've got a team that's relatively low in confidence. You can't change the formation every week. You know, you've got to, at some point, you've got to let something kind of bed in, and players kind of need to play it. And they started against Livingston, and to be fair, did really well in that back three with Murray in there. And then Murray obviously pulls up. Now, at that point, you've got the choice of, and I said after that game, I would have went back four at that point and just, we need to stop doing this, let's go back four. But they've kind of stuck with that back three thing. And there's a bit of me thinks that if they keep chopping and changing, you're never going to get any kind of fluidity in the team. I mean, Brown back in training is great, but like I say, I don't see him playing on Friday night. Maybe on the bench if we're lucky, but I don't see it. Matthews can play right back, but I'm still not convinced it's a great option. But I think if you're playing against that Dunfermline side with the injuries that they've got and the squad that they have, I do think that if you're going to play Ross Matthews in defence, so let's just take for a second Kieran Freeman's maybe not 100% fit, so isn't going to start. You've effectively got no right-sided defender. So do you play Ross Matthews at right back, or do you play him right side of a back three? I still agree with what Neill Collins said. I think he has got the attributes to play that position, provided you're not getting bombarded aerially and physically, which is where Ross Matthews will struggle a bit. Not with the physical side of things so much as just George Oakley and Anton Dowes are just clever. They just bump you at the road, and you know they pull your shirt and they move you about and stuff. And he's not a centre half, and he's not a right back. So I do think it affords him a bit more protection if you play him on the right side of a three. So if it was me, and if Kieran Freeman's not fit, I would stick with the back three as it was, simply from the point of view that it provides a little bit more protection. And again, you've got Gibson in front of him who can do the getting forward bit better than what Ross Matthews can, that up the right wing, better than what Ross Matthews can from right back.
Yeah, very valid points there. One thing that was touched on in the Courier actually this week was that Ewan Murray, just looking at it there, sort of saying that he was out doing some running at the full-time whistle. So hopefully that he's not trained an awful lot, he was saying, but they're needing basically getting more into training, but that they are really missing Ewan Murray for it. So I think that that'll be a huge return when he gets back fit. Just and I'd be really keen to see a sort of timetable for when they hope Fordyce is back. Because I don't think he's had a chance to really step in and make a position his own yet at centre back. But if you get him, Murray and Hanlon at the back, I'd struggle to think of a better back three that you could get at this level, just given the experience that they've got and what's available. So yeah, just to move on, just in general, just ask each of you. So, Callum, what's giving you reason for optimism heading into this Fife Derby? What are you thinking in terms of reasons that Rovers fans might look at this quite positively? Right, well, we can add that to a 2-0 defeat, and you'll go in there with Scott just when they put in their best performance of the season. If you could, what's
Okay, but aside from that, they do seem to be in a somehow worse injury situation than we are in. And I mean, James McPeak, I do not rate as a manager. And it's just like the club as a whole are just in a complete mess. It's like, I think Scott, you were saying about seeing them not scoring more than one goal. Ayr United 2 weeks ago was their first goal of the league season. And before that, I think the last goals they had scored were either in their defeat against Forfar or in their win against Spartans. So they have just not looked good and that's coming from Palace fans that I've seen online. It's just like, lads, we're shambles. So I'm fairly confident that we will.
I think that real low point for them was that statement coming out, and since then they seem to have sort of freed up a bit of money to kick on and sort of use. But even still, they're sort of, you hear about that they've got the lad that was with Motherwell, Clay, and they're still not signing him. They're just keeping him training, ticking over. Dapo Mabudi's now in their training as well, according to the Courier. So, Scott, looking ahead to the derby on Friday, just is there anything for you that's jumping out as being a reason to be quite optimistic going in, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, I would just kind of touch on what I said just right at the very start of this episode. I think if we were to go out all guns blazing like we did first half hour, especially down at Ayr, against a team that's at the opposite end of the table than Ayr, considering that Ayr were full of confidence going into that game, I think we'd have them absolutely rattled, to be honest. If you got an early goal, I'm not saying that they would fall to pieces, but I think it would just mean that they then go, oh God, we're already 1 down after however long, and then going, right, well, we've got to somehow now score a goal, and we've just talked about how difficult that's been for them this season. So I think, I just think the guys this time will know. But then part of me is thinking, going into it, is will we go full guns blazing like we did in that? Because it almost looked like in the second half, that penalty came really early on. It almost looked like we had kind of ran out of gas after about an hour down at Ayr, and then I was just like, well, is that because we've gone with such a high press that we've not been used to, that we're kind of using up energy that we've not been using recently, and it's going to take maybe a few weeks to like adapt to what Collins is asking us. But I might be completely wrong with that. I don't know.
Group chat just before Ayr scored, like just when we were making the subs, because we had performed really well, and sort of like we were asking, is now the right time to make the subs? And obviously, I get that Easton and Gibson were running on sort of empty at that point, but yeah, I think that it's such a hard one to sort of maintain that for the full game. But then at the same time, if you do and you can be successful with it and get yourself far enough ahead, you'd be optimistic. Blair, for you, is there any reason that's jumping out for you to be looking forward to this on Friday and just positive?
Yeah, it's a Fife Derby. Love a Fife Derby. And at East End as well on a Friday night. It doesn't get any better than that. I do agree with actually Callum's point. James McPake is the main reason I feel optimistic. I just don't. Murray had the better of him all of last season. I don't see any reason to think that Collins coming in can do a similar kind of number on him. But do you know what I mean? Famous last words. I no doubt this will get clipped by some Ayr United fan and thrown back in my face, since they apparently now all watch our podcast. I don't know. Like I felt really optimistic going in on Sunday. I felt a bit deflated by the final whistle. My bubble had burst, if you like. But I still feel like they're a good side. Like we've got players to come back, and when you look at it, I mean, you've got Fordyce and Murray, you've got Brown and Stanton, and you've got Hamilton and Vaughan to come. That's a spinier side. It's right up the middle of the pitch. Do you know what I mean? And it's crucial that we get these guys back in. That they're not in any great shape either. They're looking at making signings, and I'll be honest with you, the names that are getting banded about are boys I didn't want us to be even looking at. I feel like we're shopping in completely different markets from them just now. Collins needs a win. There's no doubt about it. You need to get a bit of momentum and kind of get started. But I would disagree slightly with the idea that we tired on Sunday quite as much. I still think it was more to do with them upping their game. They'd clearly not had a good first half, and Ayr came out at us in the second half. And I think what naturally happened was the players wanted to try and kind of hold the win, if you like, because Collins looked quite frustrated on the sideline as well. He wasn't ushering them to shut up shop or anything like that, certainly from what I could see. So no, I do feel quite confident. I think we're still a good side. We've got potentially goals in us, which I didn't feel like we had before Sunday.
Yeah,
I
did
just need
like
to wait
that.
and see, I suppose.
I mean, all the stats for Neill Collins' sort of time at Barnsley, I know that it's there's a Courier piece that spoke about it before where you had a lot of their fans commenting that they were unhappy with the style. But I think that just one reason for me is, again, you touched on it there, Blair, is like the sheer number of goals that they scored. I feel like if we can tap into that, I feel like that if we do score, if we can get going on Friday night, I feel like we could absolutely hammer them. Again, famous last words, but like, there's no reason with the players that we've got why we can't do that particularly.
No, I did not say hammer, so that's
again, I'm not denying that Dunfermline have got a potential to
we're all in this
us
together
to basically make us look daft, but at the same time, like, yeah, I mean, Collins' team seem to be built around the premise that like you can go out and score a good number of goals. They were one of the highest scoring teams at that level season. Admittedly, it's not his own squad, but we've got one of the best squads in this league, and with the players that we've got coming back, they're only going to be fitter after an extra 4 days of training. So yeah, I feel like now that we've got, I would feel a lot more worried if we didn't have the likes of Sean Byrne, Sam Stanton, Lewis Vaughan, etc. in the team for this one. But yeah, looking ahead, I'm reasonably optimistic going into it. Not as certain as I was towards the final derbies of last year, where I thought we've got their number and can go and do a clean sweep. But yeah, we've been at East End Park with worse injury crisis, I would like to think. So yeah. Just to move on to lineups and predictions, if you guys had a chance to do lineups at all, we get that a bit busy before. Blair, you want to kick us off firstly? Nope.
Same team as Sunday. I honestly, I don't see any changes. I think we'll go with exactly the same thing again.
Well, I do have changes because I'm not playing a
4-2-3-1.
But that. Well, it could go into that at some point, but I've got Kevin goals, a back four of Freeman. Now, I think Ewan Murray is probably going to play on Friday. I think he'll be desperate to play, so I could see him actually being. I think the fact that he got that extra bit of rest at the weekend when not playing, I just think he'll be desperate. The fact that he's had basically 2 weeks since the Livy game to recuperate. I just think the fact that had it been like Morton at home, I think we maybe would have rested him. I just think a Fife Derby, he'll be well up to reach in to get into this game. So I've got Murray and Hanlon as the centre halves with Stevenson at left back. I've then got a midfield three of Matthews, Stanton and Byrne, with two sort of in behind the striker of Mullen and Easton, but they can't. This is what I'm saying. Like, on paper, I've got it as a 4-3-2-1, but it could easily go to Matthews and Byrne sitting with Stanton pushing up if you wanted it to, and then Easton can venture out to the left, Mullen on the right, and then I've actually gone with Vaughan up front. I just think the guy loves playing against Dunfermline, and he's scored plenty of goals against Dunfermline, so I just think that why not, again, just add to your tally in a derby match. But just because I say it every time when I talk about the bench, like, for weeks we've been saying now that the bench has actually been its weakest for a long time. The fact that we've just been, no offence to them, but they're all like young lads or inexperienced lads that are there, and yeah, that's all we've had because of injuries. But if it was somehow, if Collins went with the team that I've gone with, you've got the likes of Deco. I've got Scott Brown on the bench. I think he might get put on the bench just in case that we needed him for 20 minutes, say. But and then you've got Montague, Connolly, Smith, Gibson and Jameson. Like, if you're bringing on 3 or 4 of them in the second half, I can guarantee you there's none of that quality coming off the past
Speaking about inexperience coming off the bench, you've just reminded me to the game that we played when it was Peter Grant was in charge, and they'd not won a game for ages, and they were winning 1-0, and Kieran Mitchell came off the bench and then slotted the ball through for Brad Spencer. It was something like a cutback or a slot through or something like that, and Spencer just rolled it at the bottom corner, and it was absolute pandemonium because we were on that track side just with that. Just brought back memories there, Scott, so thank you for that. It's just another classic Derby goal. Callum, you want to give us a lineup?
I've just scribbled something there. I've gone with a 5-3-2 because I've gone with a similar back four, but with Ewan Murray coming in instead of Ross Matthews as a centre back. And then in the midfield, I've got Stanton, Byrne, and Easton, and then up front, the two strikers will be Vaughan and Smith.
Sounds good. For me, I've gone back to a 4-2-3-1, channeling the Cameron Fleming resistance. So yeah, Kev at the back, Stevenson, Dick, Hanlon, Freeman, going sort of left to right there. I'd have Byrne and Stanton or Byrne and Easton. I wouldn't be too sure particularly because Stanton can cover so much ground. Having him sort of bit.
You're not having Easton in a
just
defensive
being a bit
too.
more aggressive. It is Dunfermline, and then out on the wings.
Robbie, you're new to this 4-3-1 stuff. Like, I'll let you.
I was going to say that's a 4-1-3-2, is it?
Jamieson and Smith out on the wider positions. I felt like Jamieson was really impressive in terms of sort of the work rate that he's brought to the table so far, and just really, really excellent in terms of harassing. And then Lewis Vaughan up top. But again, it's never going to be a 4-2-3-1, and that is going to be all completely wrong. So let's just bin that. Oh, aye.
I'd love to see Vaughan starting on Friday night. A full fit Lewis Vaughan
would be a great way to kick off.
Sight to behold.
The manager's new reign in charge in a league game. Just if you do want to get your predictions in for the prediction league, as I've heard Blair's continually to update that, and we did have much to Duncan's frustration, shall we say? So
a recount. Yeah, one of the weeks slipped off. So thanks to Alan for spotting that he'd went down in points, which was how we spotted it. But yeah, Duncan's getting battered by his old man, which is pleasing.
And I'm getting battered by.
Were you in the? I saw you mention in the group chat earlier on, Callum. Were you still in the far right hand corner, or have you moved out the relegation zone?
No, I've moved out the far right corner. I'm out the relegation zone.
There's a couple of folk who've come out the right hand corner. If you miss 2 weeks in the trot, I'll basically drop you off the table. I've still got your scores, so if you come back in, you'll get it. But if you miss 2 weeks on the bounce, I'll just take you out so that I'm not just continually leaving you with the points at the bottom sort of thing. But there's one or two in that far right hand column I've missed a couple of weeks, I think, to get themselves out of there.
Oh God, what does that mean about me?
Well, in true pre-match fashion, we'll have a game of should McStay, should Dargo. Sound good? So I've prepped up 6 clues about a past or a present rover. So just guess away. So clue number 1. I played for 8 clubs, 7 of which were in Scotland, and 1 is based in England. Any opening bids?
7 Scottish.
Yes.
So that's the only 8 clubs I've played for. Right.
'Really struggling after that first one.
Even 7's quite a lot, actually.
That's the thing. Like, I've quite a few clubs. That's somebody that's probably, I'm gonna guess, already even retired, arguably.
I'll go. I don't think it's quite 7, but I'll just to get a name rolling. I'll go Tom Lang. Mind you, I don't know if he made a professional appearance down south, did he?
Yeah, I'm sure. If you had just told me it was 8 clubs in Scotland, I would have had hundreds of answers for you. But the England one's kind of throwing me a wee bit. Yeah. They played down south for a bit. I genuinely don't have an answer. Don't know.
Brad Spencer, Callum?
Brad Spencer?
Shall we move on to clue 2? Clubs have included Thistles, Rangers, Saints, Rovers, and an Athletic. Thistles,
Hang on. Thistles,
Rangers,
All right, Len.
Saints,
Rangers.
Rovers, and Athletic.
Right.
Kevin Nisbet.
I'm sticking because I've got no idea.
Just going through all the clubs in Scotland that have got Rovers. That's all. Rangers and them.
And in England as well.
Oh no, Kevin Nisbet was
I mean,
Millwall,
to be
wasn't he?
fair, there's no many Thistles in England.
No.
I would guess it's possibly maybe Saints or something down there. Could they have came through a Southampton academy or something? I'd love to say there's even been a name popped out of my head, but there's no. Like, no. For any, it's just the fact that this English club, it's.
This could be the worst game ever, eh?
I feel like every week I've been getting worse at this game. I don't know if this game's just playing games with me now.
It doesn't mess with your brain. It
I mean,
messes
I'm
with your
consistently
brain.
I mean,
shit,
we'll
so-
get in the comments. Somebody got
It
it
could be
after
worse.
bloody question 2 somehow, just what I guess. But
You want to go into clue 3?
I
Yeah.
genuinely don't have a
I
guess.
Did you say, sorry, can I just
Thistles,
double check? Thistles,
Rangers, Saints, Rovers,
Saints.
and an Athletic.
An Athletic. An Athletic.
That's what I was about to say. Oh, who's playing for...
or an athletic team.
Now I'm going to open this up a wee bit actually to expand on my first 2 clues. Now bear in mind that there is a Rangers that played in Scotland that are based in England, but they no longer are in the SPFL.
Oh Christ! Are you going to tell me that Berwick Rangers is the English team?
yeah.
Oh my god.
So for clue 3,
Now I've got hundreds of answers flown to my team.
So hang on. No, right, hang on. So we need to... Scott's hitting something here. I'm sorry. Berwick Rangers are not an English
they're
team.
based in England. I said
They've
based in
never
England.
played in English.
I said based in England. You can watch
No,
that
you
back.
said an English side.
I mean, he
Right,
did,
okay.
but
Right.
like,
Clue 3.
yeah.
I
It's the
scored
league
the
they
goal
play in.
which relegated Gretna in their final season.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, fuck off. I did a video on them. I don't think I mentioned that, though. It was a game. It was St Johnson. It was St Johnson.
Has he played that many clubs?
I don't think it was St Johnson. I think it was St Mirren.
No, I don't think St Mirren were in the
One of you might be
top
right.
flight that season. I'm not sure.
I think they were.
What?
I'm sure they were.
Well, surely one of them's right. It's the
'Cause
only
I'm
two
sure it
clubs
was
in
one of
Scotland.
was it not the last season at Love Street?
Who would they been? I'm just to finally get a bloody answer on paper. I'm just going to say Robert Sloan.
Oh, it's Craig Dargo. It's got to be Craig Dargo. He was at St Mirren. I'm sure it was the
Callum,
last season at Love
you got
Street.
any guesses?
Played for
Is he played for
Nice.
Rangers?
No, I've got no guesses.
Berwick.
Did he play at Berwick? Did he?
Right.
Derek Rangers.
He played at Berwick. I'm sure he did. But he played for Inverness, so that'd be the
Uh-huh.
Thistle.
He's played at
He played for
Dunfermline.
Dunfermline, and he's played for
Clue
St
four.
Mirren.
I played 132 games for Raith Rovers, scoring 37 goals.
That's about right.
Sounds about
Plus-
right.
It's a derby coming up, and Craig Dargo,
Clue 5.
Millennium
Maybe should have
Derby's
thought
I
winning
of
signed
that,
for
that.
Raith in
actually,
1995 and stayed for 5 years. Clue 6. My name's in the game.
Wow, I wonder why I didn't get this one.
Well done, Blair. Well done, Blair.
Should next year, should
Aye,
Dargo.
I did. You know what the funny thing was? Yes, it was.
It was St
Aye.
Mirren, wasn't it? They relegated them.
Aye, so he
Yeah.
appeared for both Thistles. He was and St John, St Mirren even. I don't know if it was the last game at Love Street. I was looking through back in 1998. He was playing at Rovers. I think he was playing for Scotland under 18s, and no, he didn't.
Oh, did he play against Sergio
He did play.
Busquets?
He scored a double against Belgium, who were absolutely rotten at that point in terms of their national team. But like the team that Scotland had at that point was like Craig Easton played for them. Barry Ferguson was in there. Alan Archibald. So I was tempted to throw in a question about like how many ex-SPFL managers he played with. But yeah, really well done, Blair. That was well deduced there from that one. But
That was
Well,
pretty quick,
that's it.
to be fair. What was that?
So-
Clue 3?
well entitled to be smug with that one.
It was as soon as Callum said St Johnson, I was like, I don't think it was. I could be wrong. Somebody will correct me, but I'm sure it was the last season at Love Street before they moved to
Well, we'll go figure it out.
New St Mirren
And
Park.
I am just going to need to say it this
Yeah.
time.
Get a half
If you
point.
get the answer to this, do not share it on the socials because Graham Meldrum gets very, very upset by this. When he's listening along to the podcast and we've been hyping it up in the
Yeah.
group chat about how good the latest Should Mix There, Should Dargo is, and then he sees a spoiler and he's very unhappy.
Don't put it in the YouTube comments either.
you'll get hidden
you
from the channel.
YouTubers.
Aye.
At least
So-
give it
You can
24
hear his
hours.
anguish from
Even-
Ayrshire.
Oh, and also, if any Ayr United fans have got this far through the podcast and are still
Well,
listening,
we'll accept that
get
one
it
as well.
guys. No real reason. Just stop
To be
watching
fair, I
other
do
teams'
that myself,
podcasts,
but
you
that's
weirdos.
par for the course, exactly. Aye.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's fine.
yeah, we'll no doubt be back with a debrief
You are
from
weirdo.
the Friday night derby that's coming up, and hopefully it's on the back of a convincing Neill Collins inspired Raith Rovers victory. But in the meantime, as ever, you can find us on social media on the Twitter, Instagram. Continue to have the shop that's run by Blair there. Make sure you get your predictions in, and we will see you at the end of the weekend for a review of the game. But bye for now.